But they went this last week, wasn't it?
You got to know what they have.
Was it Monday?
Yeah.
Coming around a little.
Yeah. It doesn't make too big.
All getting sunburned. Our noses.
Anyway.
So it's after 7:00. And I know that there's stuff we gotta do, and it's a really nice day, so I hope to give you a little bit of moderately daylight hours, but.
Okay,
I'll talk to you after.
okay.
Yep.
You guys ready? Heavenly Father, I thank you for this day, and I thank you for the beauty of this day. Lord, I'm grateful to be back and to be studying your word. So Lord, we just invite you to be amongst us, whether we're here in person or wherever we might be. And Lord, even for those people who watch this in the days ahead, Lord, we just pray that you'd be glorified and that you reveal your truth to us. We pray this in Jesus' name. Amen. So we are in chapter 7, but I've learned a couple of things, and so I wanted to talk a little bit about that. We had stopped at verse 13 2 weeks ago. Because I wanted
I don't know if you really.
when is
It's gone.
Okay, I want to get off of that.
Dawn. But a couple of things that I learned. So if you have seen anything about Egyptian pharaohs and especially like that, then a lot of times you'll see them with a headdress that has the snake. The snake was a symbol of victory for the Egyptian people. It was a symbol of power, and especially the cobra that you see a lot over there. The cobra is a snake that strikes fast. You don't see it. It strikes fast. It will latch on and not let go until its venom is completely injected into its victim. And therefore, it hangs on until its victim is dead. And they used that symbol for Egypt because they saw themselves as a power that waited. But whenever they finally did strike, they struck and they killed their foe. So that's why you almost always see that snake on their headdress. You see snakes all throughout. It was a symbol of power and victory, and it was the Egyptian mindset that we're not going to let you know we're coming until we're coming to kill you. I mean, that's just a reality. And so the reason I bring that up is because when Moses and Aaron throw down their staff, it turns into a snake, a symbol of victory. When the magicians throw down their staff and they turn into snakes as well, it's like, ha ha ha, we're matching you. But Moses's and Aaron's staff swallows the other ones. And theirs are gone. And Moses' staff is still there to be picked up and turned back into a staff. Now, on the one hand, we can inherently understand, well, I mean, that's kind of a foreshadowing. Ultimately, God's side is going to win in this. But that would have been an extremely serious omen to the Pharaoh and his court. That not only could Moses bring forth the snake, but Moses' snake bested double their snakes. And so the victory, that from the get-go actually would have caused Pharaoh to be even more concerned about his honor, his reputation, and whether or not he was willing to enact. So that was that interchange that we discussed in chapter 7 at the very beginning actually sets up the fact that Pharaoh's heart gets hardened. So he feels threatened right from the get-go, and they have an omen from their gods that their victory is twice defeated. Do you get what I'm saying there? for us, that was just an interesting story, but that, I mean, I'm not for, it'd almost be like a, if it was happening today and America was the Pharaoh, it'd be like if all of a sudden you turn something into a bald eagle, and we brought two bald eagles, and both of our bald eagles get swallowed up by their bald eagle. That would, that kind of symbolism for our freedom and our dominance and our authority in the world. And to see that not only matched, but destroyed and completely devastated. There was no stick left for them to pick up. That's a big deal. Does that make sense? So the other thing, and the reason I did that is because I want to go in and talk about, as we go through these plagues, what we would call plagues, the Jewish people refer to them not necessarily as plagues, but as judgments. And each of these judgments is on a set of Egyptian gods. So remember it's been a couple weeks and I realized that, but God said he was going to enact his judgment on Egypt and their gods. And so that's part of what's going on. The other thing is, and I was going to try and find a picture of it, I just forgot to pull it up, but there is an Ipuner, I don't know how to pronounce that, Ipuner papyrus that was found. It dates somewhere between 1543 BC and 1060. And it talks about the fact that Egypt has been devastated. It's an admonition from the Egyptian sage. And it says that catastrophes have happened. There's been a great reversal of fortune, that Egypt that was once powerful and prosperous is now not. And everything is dead. And the sage is saying, we must change our ways if we're going to get out of this. Now, this is one of the few times that it paints a picture for exactly what comes out of the Exodus with these 10 plagues. So, and the reality is, depending on when it's dated for, it paints all three time periods when we said the Exodus could have happened. The early, the middle, or the late dating would all fit within that papyrus. And so when people say that there is nothing that says that this ever happened, well, this papyrus is saying, hey, Egypt has been devastated. We need to learn the lessons and do something different. So that for me is further proof that this is there.
The text I sent you.
Yes? I don't know who it is. Okay. So I just want to throw those two pieces out before we get into it. That for me, originally, I thought the judgment starts with the first plague, but it actually starts with the first interaction between Moses and Pharaoh. Moses and Aaron and Pharaoh, and it all comes from a stick, which is kind of interesting. This, by the way, for those of you who want to know, this was given to me when I was commissioned before I got ordained, and I kept it around. I don't get to use it very often. We did use it for a walking stick for a while, so it got a foot put on the bottom of it. I don't remember which of my kids did that. Was that you? No?
You think you're gonna throw it down, see if it becomes safe?
So, with that being said, we're now ready for verse 14 of Exodus chapter 7. And I will do my best to try and, as we go through each section, to answer the questions, but also to give you kind of the overview of which Egyptian gods that judgment was on. So, unless we have any questions or comments before we get started. Comment before we get started. I do need to say, it both grieves me and I need to do this, but the next 2 weeks we won't have Bible study. Next week we're taking a small trip, getting away, and we got to be. I'm getting baseball tickets, so we're going to Toronto Blue Jays game, and in order to get there in time, it's best to just leave Thursday night instead of Friday morning. Second thing, then in the week after that, we've got a conference down in Indy. So the next 2 weeks, I hate to cancel 2 weeks back to back. I really, really hate it. But I just want to make sure I let you guys know that we won't do that. So I almost forgot. So
Unless we want to do it on our own.
unless you guys want to do it on your own. Charles, you gonna step up and do it? So if, but anyway, we can think about that before we get there, but, let's go in 14 through 19. My first paragraph. Then the Lord said to Moses, Pharaoh's heart is hardened. He refuses to let the people go. Go to Pharaoh in the morning as he is going out to the water. Stand on the bank of the Nile to meet him, and take in your hand the staff that turned into a serpent. And you shall say to him, the Lord, the God of the Hebrews, sent me to you, saying, let my people go, that they may serve me in the wilderness. But so far you have not obeyed. Thus says the Lord, by this you shall know that I am the Lord. Behold, with the staff that is in my hand, I will strike the water that is in the Nile, and it shall turn into blood. The fish of the Nile shall die, and the Nile will stink, and the Egyptians will grow weary of drinking water from the Nile. And the Lord said to Moses, say to Aaron, take your staff and stretch out your hand over the waters of Egypt, over their rivers, their canals, and their ponds, and all their pools of water, so that they may become blood. And there shall be blood throughout all the land of Egypt, even in the vessels of wood and in the vessels of stone.
Aaron was supposed to be the spokesperson, and Moses didn't have to say much. He was just going to do the stuff, and it looks like it's switched here.
It's a little bit of both.
Okay,
Originally, Moses was told to do everything.
right.
And he says, I can't speak, I've got speech impediment, I stutter, depending on how you read it. And so God brings along Aaron, and so essentially they kind of become co-regents in this enacting of God's judgment. Don, mine says in verse 18, not be able to drink it. Yours said grow weary of drinking it. That's actually a very big difference.
Mine says unable to drink water.
So, I don't know, what do you think about that difference? Yours says they won't be able to drink any water.
Right.
That's what yours says. Does anybody's parallel mine? Because if not, then mine might be the one that's the outlier instead of me. The biggest point here is that understand the Nile was the lifeblood of Egypt. And so it's kind of ironic that the water that represents life and the lifeblood of the country becomes literal blood. Now, I'm certain that there are probably some people who thought, we can still drink this. I've never tried to drink blood. I can't even come to try blood sausage or anything like that.
Do you ever smell a dead fish?
I've smelled lots of dead fish.
What's your other name? Blood pudding?
Blood pudding. So there were two different gods and goddesses of the Nile, Osiris and Hapti. These gods and so the reality of this is, in some ways, it's like their gods are bleeding out. The gods that gave them life, this would not only affect just water for drinking and water for their animals, but it would affect their production. Because again, while the blood might add some nutrients for plants, they still need the water. The Nile was a symbol of love and life for them, and now it's become a symbol of death. It affected their ability to make papyrus and the reeds and linen, and all of their production gets tied to this. So the very first judgment is on what they see as central to their identity, central to their livelihood, central to everything that is life as an Egyptian. You'd think that that would be big enough, but any thoughts or questions?
My notes down at the bottom says the spray of blood apparently reflects a natural phenomena of either reddish color of the Nile at its height in the summer, owing to red particles of earth or perhaps tiny organisms.
So at a simplest understanding, yes, there are times when the Nile can look reddish.
Sure.
It's basically dirty water at that point. But for clarification, it's not just the Nile here. It's their canals, it's their ponds, it's their pools of water. It's even the water in jugs, wooden and stone. So in some ways, while I get that they're trying to show a natural phenomenon that might help explain it, that might explain the Nile itself, but it doesn't explain any of the rest of these things. Anybody else or any other thoughts? Sure. Dying. Yep, it's definitely dying. And the thing of it is this would have extreme ripple effects. Even if this is the only plague that happens, this by itself would all but cripple the nation. I mean, we've seen in the last couple of years what just like shutting down shipping does, right? So imagine if you can't use your primary shipping lane. Imagine now if we can't use our primary suppliers of writing materials, of the things that grow the grain. And I mean, it would bare minimum, it would stunt all the fields, it would stunt their livestock. They'd probably lose some livestock because they can't drink any water. I mean, realistically, they'd probably have to resort to feeding their livestock beer and wine to drink, just so that they'd have something. I'm not saying that, and I don't even know what that would do to them. Any other thoughts? Nick? Amy, it would take quite a camel caravan to get enough bottled water to them. Yeah, because there's not much of anything in either direction. I mean, if you go south to the source of the Nile, maybe, but even then, the whole Nile is blood. So I'm almost certain probably the lakes and reservoirs that feed it. Don, we transport our grain, most of it from the state down on the river in barges by Louisville, so contained water would close that down locally. Absolutely, this would bring the entire nation to a halt. And the thing of it is it was 7 days of this, which we're not there yet. So contaminated, sorry. And typos happen all the time. Stupid audio correct, right?
I mean, it doesn't even say like things made with water, like the wine and stuff that wouldn't have gone rancid.
It doesn't really talk about wine and beer and things like that that are made with the water, but literally all water, just all water. I mean, could you imagine if we don't even have water that we could boil. I mean, there are times whenever there are boil advisories for our water. At least we can still have water. Could you literally imagine if every ounce of water for 100 miles is turned to blood? And that's what I was thinking, Amy, the stench of it alone. Day one, it wouldn't smell great. I mean, thinking of a nurse, smell of blood. Smell of blood that doesn't get cleaned up right away. A smell of blood after the second day or the seventh day. Yeah, when the sun hits it and it starts to bake.
Was Hopi the god of water?
So Hopi was the goddess of the Nile and love. And yeah. So you have Osiris, the god of the Nile and production and life, and you have Hapi, Hapi, who is the goddess of the Nile and love and music. I don't know how exactly you pronounce, but these two this god and this goddess were meant to bring life. And one of the things you have to understand about Egyptian gods is, so there's a symbiotic relationship in Egyptian theology. The gods were to bring balance to the world, and the people were to bring them worship. So if a god wasn't doing their job, then the people didn't have to worship them. So if the gods of the Nile aren't doing their job, then the people are going to revolt against them. Do you see what? And so if you have their two main gods, their main god and their main goddess, that everybody was affected by, and get slapped in judgment one, right from the get-go, things aren't looking good for Egypt. Any other thoughts before we read the next paragraph?
Does this have anything to do with, the Hebrew babies being thrown into the Nile? And
I think that has a lot to do with it. Because you think of all those babies that are thrown into the Nile and the blood that would have ran in the Nile because of that. And so there's kind of a symbolism. Okay, you thought you put blood in the Nile? God's like, I'm going to show you blood in the Nile. And he literally turns all of it to blood. I think that's a direct correlation. Any others? Next paragraph, I guess. I'll just read to the end of this chapter. 20 on. Moses and Aaron did as the Lord commanded. In the sight of Pharaoh and in the sight of his servants, he lifted up the staff and struck the water of the Nile. And all the water in the Nile turned into blood. And the fish in the Nile died, and the Nile stank, so that the Egyptians could not drink water from the Nile. There was blood throughout all the land of Egypt. But the magicians of Egypt did the same by their secret arts. So Pharaoh's heart remained hardened. He would not listen to them, as the Lord had said. Pharaoh turned and went into his house, and he did not take even this to heart. And all the Egyptians dug along the Nile for water to drink, for they could not drink the water from the Nile. 7 full days passed after the Lord had struck the Nile.
So why wouldn't they reverse this miracle? Why would they make it even worse? They're magicians. Why didn't they just clean it up so that they would all die?
So there's the funny thing. So their magicians produce the same miracle, but they're not making things any better. They're just actually making things worse. They're adding more blood to.
So how do they even add more blood? I mean, if everything was already the way it was, how do they? Where they get the clean water from?
I don't know. I don't know.
Well, if you hear this, what Kate mentioned, right?
Yes.
All right, yay, one victory tonight. I'm just making more. They talk about the fact they dug down and got some water, and maybe they got some of that. And the magicians just threw a little red sand in it, shook it up, and said, "See, blood." Because if you're looking not to believe.
Mine says all the Egyptians dug along the bank of the river for drinking water, because they were not able to drink water from the river.
So it could be that they're digging up underground water. It says all the pools, all the lakes, all the canals, everything above ground was contaminated. So then they dig down to get fresh water, and then the magicians take the fresh water and either do the dirt thing to make it look red, or they literally turn it into blood too. So they're taking the water that they were needing for life, and they're just making the problem worse.
Did the Israelites have bloody water too?
it does not say,
Yeah.
it does not differentiate at this point whether or not this is happening in Goshen as well as in Egypt. And I'm gonna do Leah and then Amy.
Well, the way that I interpreted it was that they tried to clean the water back to like multiply the fresh water that they did have, and it also turned to blood. So they were trying to fix it, but God was just like,
So-
no.
Either they tried to fix it and they couldn't do it and made it worse, or they tried to reproduce the thing that Moses did, which still makes it worse. Amy, it looks like God's mercy that they could get water by digging along the side of the river. Yeah, and so there, at least there's a possibility, but they gotta work really hard to get that water. I mean, it's not readily available because all of their standing water that was above ground at this point is all blood. So this would be wells and cisterns and all water in pots and bowls.
This is what I was gonna ask. They said that they tried to dig along the river bank. That water would have been blood too. I mean, it was,
It would have been filtered through sand.
Yeah, but I mean, if you're digging by the river, it's still gonna be, it's still gonna bleed in through.
Unless God's giving a little bit of grace, but they still have to work really hard for it. I mean, where I grew up in the house that we raised the kids in before I went to ministry, we lived right about a half a mile from the White River. And we just stuck a point down in the ground, 6 foot, and we could get sand filtered river water. And it's still to this day, the best water I've ever tasted. And so there, I get this picture where it would be filtered. It was the blood that's being filtered. And so it's probably not quite blood, but I don't think it was still good. It'd take a lot of filtration to turn blood into water. Any other thoughts? Excellent. I don't know about you guys, but after the snake thing and this, I would be done. I'd be checking out. Now, maybe not. I mean, you know, Pharaoh is the leader of the largest, most powerful empire of the day.
yeah, I'd be moving.
You'd be moving. All right, so chapter 8, 1 through 7. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Go into Pharaoh and say to him, 'Thus says the Lord, let my people go that they may serve me. But if you refuse to let them go, behold, I will plague all your country with frogs. The Nile shall swarm with frogs that shall come into your house and into your bedroom and on your bed and into your houses of your servants and your people and into their ovens and your kneading bowls. The frogs shall come up on you and on your people and all your servants." And the Lord said to Moses, "Say to Aaron, stretch out your hand with your staff over the rivers, over the canals, and over the pools, and make frogs come up on the land of Egypt." So Aaron stretched out his hand over the waters of Egypt, and the frogs came up and covered the land of Egypt. But the magicians did the same by their secret arts, and made frogs come up on the land of Egypt.
Mine says in the first verse, let my people go so that they can worship me.
Serve me,
Serve
worship
me, yeah.
me. That's probably not a big deal difference, but
So it says that Aaron stretched his hand over the waters of Egypt, but
so they kind of, the blood's kind of flowed into the sea by now, I guess. We're 7 days after the fact.
Okay.
So you think the water is better, but water is better, but now all the frogs are leaving. Yes, Grant? Never mind?
There'd be a lot of
Sure.
frog legs.
I was thinking that too.
What?
There'd be a lot of frog legs.
There's a lot of things worse than frogs.
There are a lot of things worse than frogs.
So you better like frogs.
You know, we're not to the locust yet, correct? But-
Worse than frogs.
Yes, Leah.
So first they couldn't eat or drink, and now they won't be able to sleep.
And now they're not gonna be able to sleep, and then everything that they would use to eat with is covered with frogs.
So you eat the frog.
So you eat the frogs.
It's bad enough waking up to the dog licking your face. let alone-
Yes, Leah.
You know, if they kept on frogs, then they wouldn't have a locust problem.
We're not to that yet, but I think we're going to see all the frogs die.
Because they have no water, water's all bloody.
So judgment number 2 is on Hekt, Hekt. She was the goddess of fertility, and she was shown as a frog-headed deity. And her job was to keep balance, that you don't have too many babies born, that it overwhelms a population, nor do you have too few born, that they don't have enough workers. And so there was a balance in life.
I've never seen a frog balance, so. They're usually a little wobbly.
And so when you have all of these frogs coming out of the Nile, there are so many frogs that they are in everything. That is a complete imbalance and a symbol that the whole system is taxed. That there is nothing available for everybody else, because all of their ovens and their mixing bowls and their beds, there is too much. And there was I saw a picture of this goddess, and the whole thing was green, and it was just like, no, I think no. I'm not for sure why frog is a symbol for fertility, but I guess because they have lots of tadpoles and all the little eggs and stuff like that.
But aren't frogs a sign of ecology? I mean,
In general, yeah, frogs are a sign of balance, of a good balance within the ecology, and that the environment is in good balance. But this is not balanced, not at all. And where we could potentially make a case for in the first plague where the magicians help things, you could possibly make that case. They're not helping anything now. They're just making things worse by summoning even more frogs. Let's just.
You wouldn't be able to walk anymore.
You wouldn't be able to walk without stepping. Okay,
Oh.
all I can picture is,
No.
It's like trying to walk.
what they say, how deep's the water? Deep.
so. For Easter, after the services, we went down to my parents, and I saw my siblings and everything, and they were asking, my brother was asking me, because he knows that I butchered the sheep for Monday, Thursday, and so I was talking about it, and my youngest brother, Corey, goes, well, I haven't ever killed a sheep, but I think I've got you beat by the number of toads I've killed over the years, because he used to, when he would mow the yard, he would mow paths to run over the toads, and I'm thinking, and all I could think of was this, oh, you know, that. Yes, Leah.
So I was looking up how to spell the Egyptian goddess with the form of a frog, but it pulled up with beer and brewing that there's a liquid of happy blood and body, but it's spelled Hekt after the goddess in the story.
Yep. So, yeah, you know. So right from the get-go, first we're attacking the Nile and their lifeblood, and now we're attacking what they call balance in life and fertility. Anybody ready to check out? Anybody still hanging on after the first 2 plagues? Okay, second half of plague 2, we're still just in plague 2.
Where's your little bag of clothes?
It's in my office somewhere. Verse 8 through 15. Then Pharaoh called Moses and Aaron and said, plead with the Lord to take away the frogs from me and from my people, and I will let the people go to sacrifice to the Lord. Moses said to Pharaoh, be pleased to command me when I am to plead for you and for your servants and for your people, that the frogs can be cut off from you in your houses and be left only in the Nile. And he said, tomorrow. Moses said, be it as you say, so that you may know that there is no one like the Lord our God. The frogs shall go away from you and your houses and your servants and your people. They shall be left only in the Nile. So Moses and Aaron went out from Pharaoh, and Moses cried to the Lord about the frogs, and he agreed with Pharaoh, and the Lord did according to the word of Moses. The frogs died out in the houses, the courtyards, and the fields. They gathered them together in heaps, and the land stank. But when Pharaoh saw that there was a respite, he hardened his heart and would not listen to them, as the Lord had said. So, just to be clear, does Pharaoh really even care about his people? Wouldn't you think if he had permission to choose when the frogs would go, he would say immediately? He says, we can get rid of them tomorrow.
Why?
I don't know. It makes no sense to me. He's a busy man. We can't get in trouble with it for the rest of today. I've already dealt with enough today. I don't want to shovel frogs.
He's not taking care of the frogs. All his servants are keeping him out of his room.
So, yeah, realistically, it's not, I mean, it is his problem, but it's probably not his problem. He's not worried about them that there. He's probably getting on to the servants and making, come on in, Steve, and making sure that they have to clean up the problem. So, it can be done tomorrow. It really kind of shows just how callous he is, doesn't it? And then for the record, God gets rid of the frogs by killing them all off. So sorry, Grant, your notion about keeping them around for the locusts. That now we just get, it was bad enough when they were alive everywhere. Now they're dead everywhere. You can't eat rancid frog legs.
Now you don't have to catch them.
Now you don't have to catch them. This is true. You can just shovel them. I'm not for sure which would be worse, shoveling crap or shoveling dead frogs. Yes, Leah.
Where are they putting all these dead frogs? Are they burning them?
It's like throwing them in the Nile.
Yeah. Thought just occurred to me. You know what lives in the Nile, right? Crocodiles, hippos. If the Nile was all blood, those creatures are getting out of the Nile. And they would have been hungry. Side note. But yeah, let's just throw the dead frogs back into the water. That's gonna go. We just got the water cleared. Are we sure we want to contaminate the water again? The frogs would float?
Or the bass,
Maybe I'll
the bass
look
and the
into
fish.
where
will
would they
go with
float.
the frogs.
If there's any of those
Yeah,
left.
there's any left, yeah.
If there were any fish that survived the 7-day blood debacle.
I wouldn't want to mess with that fish. Yeah, piranha, yeah.
Is the Nile even cleared? I missed that.
It 7 days later, it implies it's cleared. It doesn't say it's cleared, but we kind of,
Take for granted.
we take for granted. That's a good point. We don't know that the Nile has cleared up yet, which is probably why 7 days later, all the frogs are leaving the water, because they can't live in blood. They can live in water, they can't live in
I
blood.
feel like each of these episodes, like that it would have been clear, because I feel like each of these episodes, the other one goes away, you know? And then he doesn't learn his lesson, and then another one comes along.
That, you kind of get that impression. So either we have this judgment 1 comes, it's for 7 days, and it finally goes away. And Pharaoh's like, nope, sorry, not letting you go. So we get judgment 2, which that in and of itself would be bad enough. But if there's a compounded effect on these, because they're probably going to keep cleaning up dead frogs before we get into the 3rd one. And once we get into the 3rd one, we're probably still cleaning up the frogs.
I always thought it was kind of a compounded thing, yeah.
Man, and if it's compounded, again, I'm checking out after plague 1. I don't need plague 2.
Well, it doesn't say how long the frogs were there,
1 day.
just one day.
1 day and yeah.
Yes, we said we'll deal with that tomorrow. That's
Yeah,
tomorrow.
after the people, well, it could, I guess it could be more than 1 day, because the people frogs could have came. The next day the people are complaining, and then Pharaoh says, get rid of them tomorrow. So 2 days. We'll give it a longer period, right? 2 days. But you're still piling dead, and Leah, I don't know where you put that many frogs. If they're everywhere, they're in, and I'm not, understand, the Egyptians were not about burning things.
Throw them in the Nile and the fish eat them.
But the fish are dead, the crocodiles, I guess.
They don't say the fish.
Yeah, all the fish died on the first day.
Yes, Grant?
Mine says they piled them up into great heaps, so they just kind of piled them up.
So we're going to have the Great Pyramid of Dead Frogs.
I think they buried them and made fertilizer out of them.
Buried them in the desert.
You have two comments.
Two comments.
Three comments.
Verse 14 says they were piled into heaps and the land reeked of them. Yeah, I still like the picture in my head of the Great Pyramid of Dead Frogs. And Amy says, especially since the magicians are duplicating the problem. I still can't get over that. The magicians are not making things better. I mean, they're proving, I guess, that Moses's power is not unique, but they're not helping.
But wouldn't it made the magicians look better if they'd have went boom, the frogs were gone?
Yeah.
But no, they duplicate what Moses does.
They make out. And
God only has to do half the work.
Yeah.
So God, he brings the judgment and the Egyptians say, yeah, we're gonna make that worse.
We're beating on each other.
So part of what, Dawn, your question about why are they not about burning things, and the point I was trying to make to Leah is, understand, this is the first civilization that we really know for certain perfected embalming. To burn a body was to desecrate it for the Egyptian people. And so they didn't burn anything unless they had to. Because again, you're in a desert and you've only got so much water around and so much green space, and you don't want to risk what little green space you have catching on fire.
But even in the desert at night, sometimes it gets cool. What would they burn then? I mean, to cook with.
They would still burn for cooking and for flames for light and things like that. But the Egyptian people as a whole were not big fans of fire. It was a dangerous thing to keep around. Unlike, there are some cultures where when a person dies, they burn them, they cremate them right then and there. That was not the Egyptian way. And here's the thing, understand, frogs were representative of one of their gods. So to burn the frogs would be a further slap in the face of this goddess. Yes, Grant?
Waiting for all the frogs to die at once, wouldn't that also send an element of all the balance is gone?
Yeah, so not only did they all come and all of them come out and now they all die at once, the balance of the level of life and fertility is completely out of whack from an Egyptian standpoint.
And see, the magicians could have brought them back to life.
Well, got more? They just killed them twice. Okay. Anybody sticking around? Anybody at all? How?
Nothing I can't understand why Pharaoh was so stupid. You tell him, Jim. And this has happened.
So
if he would listen.
So
To be fair, if someone's reading the story of our life in 1,000 years.
Let's not go there.
It's true. But they say the same things. I mean, as you're reading all this, I'm like, how many times does it take our culture to figure things out?
Amen.
And when from the moment he was born, this Pharaoh was told he is the representation of God on earth. I mean, from the moment, we think that kids today are spoiled and entitled. They're not told they are the physical manifestation of the high God here on earth.
Well, some maybe.
So to your point, think of how entitled he has to be, and think of how callous he must be. He was taught to just not care about people. That's the only thing that makes any sense for someone to stick to his guns, even after these first 2 plagues, right? Maybe we said that 10 days in and he's.
Okay, and he was taught not to care about the people, but yet he wants them to wait on him hand and foot.
Well, just like for the Egyptian people, remember that symbiotic relationship. As the people worship the deity was to provide for them. That same thing exists for the Pharaoh. And the people exist to honor and care for the Pharaoh. And the Pharaoh's job is to make sure that they have the bare minimum of what they need. And so long as there's that balance, everything is good. But if Pharaoh admits any weakness, that balance between him and his people is threatened. Which, if you can't tell, gods of Egypt, volatile. Our God, while enacting justice, is not volatile. We saw that in Genesis, right? Over and over and over again. Our God is patient, but in this instance, he's bringing out judgment.
You know, I was thinking, Sam, also if I maybe go for, say, tomorrow, he might have been hoping something would happen before then, and that way he could dismiss God.
We've got the nighttime. It was a different God that got rid of, killed all the frogs. It wasn't your God. You know. Anything else? We're just through plague 2 here. Plague 3, 16 through 19. Then the Lord said to Moses, say to Aaron, stretch out your staff and strike the dust of the earth so that it may become gnats in all the land of Egypt. And they did so. Aaron stretched out his hand and with his staff struck the dust of the earth, and there were gnats on man and beast. All the dust of the earth became gnats in the land of Egypt. The magicians tried their secret arts to produce gnats, but they could not. So there were gnats on man and beast. Then the magician said to Pharaoh, this is the finger of God. But Pharaoh's heart was hardened, and he would not listen to them, as the Lord had said. Yes, Leah.
Can you read your verse 18 again?
Verse 18, the magicians tried by their secret arts to produce gnats, but they could not. So there were gnats on man and beast. So by the third one, the magicians are out of power. They can't do anything, right? I don't know how you pronounce it. It's either, I would want to say Geb, G-E-B, was the god of the dust and the earth. And there was also an unnamed gnat god. I'm not for sure why you would have a god that was a gnat god. I mean, you're getting a little desperate at some point. But Geb was the god of the earth, and the dust and the earth were supposed to help produce. And they were supposed to help, we come from the dirt. That was still a kind of a notion of the Egyptians as well. And so instead of it helping to produce life, now it's become gnats that are here to devour life. So again, the notion of balance, not only is this not balanced, this is completely reversed.
And then they have sticky frog goo all over them, and now they have gnats that just stick to them.
The gnats are eating the sticky frog goo over everything. Yeah.
The other way around, if you had gnats, the frogs could eat it.
If it was going in their benefit, the frogs could have ate the gnats. But no. The gnats come after the frogs. And again, the magicians tried to reproduce this, and they admit, well, we can't really do this one. Sorry, you're on your own. This is the finger of God.
I think it's funny that they use the finger of God. The gnats is like a finger of God. I mean, you kill a gnat with your finger, but
You can kill a gnat with your finger, but the many gnats you got, they're slapping thousands of them with a single hand.
I think of gnats, I think of, they always swarm.
The swarm
And you
of
don't really see them, and you're walking.
And then you walk right
And
through.
you're like, you have 500 of them in your mouth.
Yes.
Or there's one single one.
it's
Yes.
fun.
So, think of that.
And you can't kill it.
I'll take the frog.
And then that's everywhere.
I think I might spice up a frog right through the net.
I'll take the frog.
Yeah, they're really annoying it.
I mean, I would ask, is anybody still sticking around, but everybody checked out by. So, yes, Greg.
Frogs just kind of hop along and not care, like gnats follow
Oh, yeah. Once you get into the swarm, they just kind of stay there.
Honestly, that was gnats and not mosquitoes, so.
No, well, in my Bible does say and mosquitoes.
Oh, well, then
Yeah,
I'm
they
out.
would.
I'm going.
Gnats and mosquitoes, that's like a double win.
I gotta find it. Oh, it says, the word translated gnat occurs here only in it says pigs, 10531, perhaps insects known as mosquitoes. So maybe some translations.
So this is a word that's used only once. And so that means that the translation of it is somewhat obscure. They're saying gnats would be bad enough.
Or it could be.
If it was mosquitoes, then that's even worse. But like I said, the notion of dirt to gnats actually attacks a specific god in Egypt, where the dirt was meant to bring life, and now it's devouring life. Of course, mosquitoes kind of do the same thing, don't they?
And they bring noise, but gnats can be silent.
Yeah.
Pharaoh was certainly an unbeliever.
At least up to this point, I'm not, again, he thinks he's his own God, so I'm not. I mean, at some point, we have to say Pharaoh has gone from bullheadedness to stupidity. I'm not for sure if we're there yet.
We gotta be getting close.
We gotta be getting close.
It doesn't say anything about people leaving though, when they.
Yeah, the Egyptians aren't leaving yet. At what point do the people revolt?
What's for dinner? Gnats.
Gnats are for dinner.
2-day-old frogs.
Yes.
Yeah, I can't figure out why Pharaoh would let Moses keep coming back and doing it. You know, if he's caused problems, why not just?
Why not just have him off, right?
It's kind of like, oh, that Moses guy's at the door again.
I don't.
I like
want
Jehovah's
to So there's a good point. Why would Pharaoh keep putting up with Moses coming back? So my gut reaction to that question is he's got to be at least secretly afraid of it. Because at this point now, his magicians aren't doing the same thing Moses is. Moses has now proven with this third one, he's more powerful than Pharaoh's magicians. But also notice on this one, Moses doesn't appear before Pharaoh for the third plague. There's no talk here. This one is just, yeah, we're just sending this. You talked for the first two, we're just going to send an extra one just for good measure. So, but I'm with you. I'm not for sure why Pharaoh keeps hunkering down and doubling down. I'm not for sure why he allows Moses in. I mean, I would find a way to have him assassinated if I was the leader, just say, I'm not saying I'm a good guy. At this point in time, I'd probably be very not a good guy. But I don't understand. He's apparently not the brightest bulb in the bunch. Any other thoughts?
I gotta agree with what Mindy had mentioned earlier. If we looked at our own lives though, how often do we see God? We've seen God do things, and then we're still dumb. We are dumb. We see God do miraculous things. We see God work things out over and over in our lives, and I'm sorry, that's all of us have. And yet something else comes up, and we're like, how are we gonna handle this? Really?
Humanity has a very short memory. We do. And as each plague goes away, I'm sure Pharaoh, apparently his tolerance for craziness resets. That's the only thing that makes sense to me.
Well, and if the people were dependent on him, they're probably like, well, if he's not giving up, I guess, why would we run away?
So there comes the other part of it. Again, if he is the representation of the gods on earth, there's probably this part of him that says, I can't back down. If I back down, everything is given up. But that still doesn't answer the question why I didn't let Moses in. I don't have a good answer for it.
You always have answers standing on the house. When you're actually in the middle of it, you don't see the simplicity of, let's get rid of Moses and.
Just off that Moses dude, did everything go?
And then all of a sudden you hear, "I'm back."
I mean, we don't realize that this is the God of resurrection for, like 1,500 some odd years or so, but still.
We may have sent somebody and like, where'd they go? We have no idea. They dropped dead 5 feet from him. We don't know.
They got sworn by
Moses didn't know what was going on.
Yeah.
He just thought they won't great for him. God may have been working behind the scenes.
Ready for plague 4?
I don't think they are.
At least the magicians recognize that this is the finger of God. So Pharaoh doesn't believe, but the magicians are starting to change their tune by plague 3. And we know that there's 10. Let's go to 4. 20 through 24. Then the Lord said to Moses, rise up early in the morning and present yourself to Pharaoh as he goes out to the water, and say to him, thus says the Lord, let my people go that they may serve me. Or else, if you will not let my people go, behold, I will send swarms of flies on you and your servants and your people and into your houses. And the houses of the Egyptians shall be filled with swarms of flies, and also the ground on which they stand. But on that day I will set apart the land of Goshen, where my people dwell, so that no swarms of flies shall be there, that you may know that I am the Lord in the midst of the earth. Thus I will put a division between my people and your people. Tomorrow this sign shall happen. And the Lord did so. There came great swarms of flies into the house of Pharaoh and into his servants' houses throughout the land of Egypt. The land was ruined by swarms of flies. So if you can disregard the gnats, let's try a bigger bug.
Get out the sticky paper.
So is this the first time he separated Goshen from?
It seems to be clear
I
that
mean, didn't say that in the first three.
it did say that in the first 3, but it's being clear now. And to your point, Bub, notice he's not meeting Pharaoh at his house.
He's stalking, man.
He's kind of stalking Pharaoh here. He's meeting him as he goes down to the river.
Which is still there or not?
I'm not for sure this is any better, but again, if I was Pharaoh, I would send whatever guard I have to go kill that guy. So
And if things are compounding, it would make sense that flies are now around because of decay.
yep, flies like to eat dead things. And notice it says there's so many of them that they're all over the ground where you're stepping.
It's like cave crickets.
Anybody know what I'm talking about? She's talking about cave crickets, where when you step on them, they pop. So, judgment 4 is on Khepri, Khepri is the god of creation and insects. He had an insect head. Not for sure again why you want a god with an insect head. But insects were known for their importance of life and pollination and the value that they have. Even flies have a value of eating dead things and helping decompose dead and bringing life. And it's interesting because the god Khepri was known if there were too many insects, Khepri would eat the excess of insects. He is definitely not doing his job because there's way too many flies everywhere. So again, the balance thing. Amy, maybe the Pharaoh, when Moses was a baby, didn't have the same habit of going to the river in the morning. Can you imagine if he'd been the one to find Moses in the bulrushes? That would be insult to injury. But to clarify, if I didn't make this clear before, this Pharaoh doesn't know who Moses is. So unfortunately, for all of Hollywood's attempts to tell this story, this Pharaoh is not Moses' brother. This Pharaoh is not Moses' adopted dad. This Pharaoh at best would be Moses' nephew, and probably further down the line than that, because it's clear that this Pharaoh doesn't know Moses. But yeah, this Pharaoh apparently didn't learn the lesson from before, and well, you know.
Where is Moses's adopted mom at this time?
Well, he's 80s. He's in his 80s.
Oh, so she'd be dead, okay.
I mean, Moses was 80 when he was called.
I forgot that that's,
He would be,
yeah.
anybody that Moses would have known is more than likely dead.
I
Yes,
forgot.
Lee.
What did you say that God was again?
That God was Khepri, Khepri.
Mine pulls up, yeah, mine pulls up that it's the God of the morning sun, and there is representing a human with the head of a scarab beetle.
Yeah, that'd be the same one. So the bugs were also kind of a notion of carrying the sun across the sky, because you know a lot of bugs fly in the air, and but now they're not carrying the sun across the sky, they're landing all over the ground and all over everything else. So again, that whole notion of balance is completely off. Completely and totally off. I mean, at least now God's being very clear. Goshen is exempt. Yes.
At this time, God specifically told Moses to get up early in the morning for the God of the morning sun.
For the God to attack the God of the morning sun, Moses goes out early in the morning. That's a very point I hadn't really put two and two together. So yeah, you know, God is absolutely taking on the Egyptian gods with this. We can finish the play? Yes.
Things like bugs and stuff. Right, they're usually out in the evening.
A lot of,
When
yeah.
it's you know, when it's already been hot of the day for them to hatch, and then it starts to get cooler.
Yeah, you know, but God can do whatever he wants. And he's just proving that the Egyptian gods who think they can do whatever they want, they can. Any other thoughts before I read the rest of the play? Yes, Brad.
So are you saying, like, the way that you're wording things, are you saying that God is like, kind of like declaring war on the Egyptian gods, or is he trying to disprove that the Egyptian gods?
There is no bones about it. God has absolutely declared war on Egypt and its gods. He is disproving them completely. Where the people rely on, the Egyptian people rely on their gods to bring balance. The God of the Hebrews is saying, sorry, your gods, if they exist at all, aren't powerful. They can't do their job. I'm proving they're wrong. Even if they do exist, they lack no power. They don't compare at all to the Hebrews' God. So he is declaring war on everything that the Egyptian society holds dear.
So is he hardening Pharaoh's heart through all of this?
So again, I want to reiterate, for me and my understanding, the best rendition of that is God is allowing Pharaoh to harden his heart. He's stopping the work of softening Pharaoh's heart. And as he continues to throw stuff at Pharaoh, he's proving his point. And if you remember a couple chapters back, God says, watch, I will bring my miracles and I will prove who I am. I am who I am. So yeah, in some ways, it's kind of one of, even if God wasn't working in Pharaoh's heart to soften it, even if God wasn't actively doing the work of hardening Pharaoh's heart, simply by bringing all this onslaught onto Pharaoh, he's playing chicken with Pharaoh. That's a concept to understand, right? Pharaoh is going to blink first. That's all there is to it. And if Pharaoh continues to not blink, God's going to call him on it. And of course, we know Pharaoh's not blinking yet. So finish the fourth plague. Ready? 25. Then Pharaoh called Moses and Aaron and said, go sacrifice to your God within the land. But Moses said, it would not be right for us to do so. For the offerings we shall sacrifice to the Lord our God are an abomination to the Egyptians. If we sacrifice offerings abominable to the Egyptians before their eyes, will they not stone us? We must go 3 days' journey into the wilderness and sacrifice to the Lord our God as he tells us. So Pharaoh said, I will let you go to sacrifice to the Lord your God in the wilderness, only you must not go very far. Plead for me. Then Moses said, behold, I am going out from you, and I will plead with the Lord that the swarms of flies may depart from Pharaoh, from his servants, and from his people tomorrow. Only let not Pharaoh cheat again by not letting the people go to sacrifice to the Lord. So Moses went out from Pharaoh and prayed to the Lord. And the Lord did as Moses asked and removed the swarms of flies from Pharaoh and his servants, from his people, not one remained. But Pharaoh hardened his heart this time also and did not let the people go. Yes, Grant?
How would we not let the people go? Like, can't they just, walk away?
Well, they were slaves. So I'm certain that he probably had the taskmasters in his. I'm thinking the National Guard is called in here and they've got people stationed everywhere. He's not letting them go anymore. That's the only thing that makes sense to me. A thought that just occurred to me. Do you think the Hebrews are still making bricks at this point?
They had no water.
They had no water to make mud, so I'm pretty sure the brick operation stalled. And there's probably a part of some of Pharaoh's administration that's thinking, we probably should have just let them make bricks. Just saying.
It had to be red brick.
It had to be red brick. Any other thoughts as we finish up?
It does make you wonder though, I'm not been over there, but I wonder if there is a discoloration in the ground and in the brick. That's left.
So underneath the city of Ramses, there is an older city that they have seen very clearly. It has dwelling places that look much more like Canaanite dwelling places instead of Egyptian dwelling places. They have found a statue to an Egyptian pharaoh that looks like a Hittite, maybe like someone by the name of Joseph, maybe, just saying. And they have proven that on top of that city, there are buildings that were built as that city, was destroyed and leveled, and a new city built on top of it, where the early stages had standard bricks, the middle stages had stubble, and the upper stages had no straw in the bricks. Just saying for those who might be keeping track. Just before it became known as the city of Ramses, all that is underneath it. Just a thought. Maybe that might imply something for those who are keeping score. Yes.
I think, Pharaoh summoned Moses and Aaron.
This time Pharaoh calls him in.
So he's getting a little, smarter.
He is, by summoning Moses, he is at least admitting that Moses has some level of power.
It's like he's gonna test me. You know, you can go out and sacrifice.
And so, yeah, he says, go, you can sacrifice here in the land. I'll let you go have your festival, but you're doing it here. And they're like, no, you don't understand. What we are called to do by our God is detestable to you guys. And if we do that here, the people will revolt against us. So Pharaoh says, fine, you can leave, but you're not going a 3-day journey. Just go right outside the border.
He just says don't go far. 3 days doesn't, I mean, it depends on your definition of far.
I guess it does depend on your definition of far. So he kind of relents, but then quickly changes his mind once the plague is over.
I think it's interesting too. He says, now pray for me.
Wait a second. I thought Pharaoh was the representation of the gods here on earth. Why would he need anybody to pray for him?
He's getting scared.
I think you're right. Not scared enough to really do anything, but he's starting to get scared.
I mean, the God's done all this. The God can't do anything worse, right?
Well, okay. So there's a nice twist on it. What if he's mocking Moses? Oh, would you just go pray for me to your God? And then I'll let you go.
I mean, why would he say pray for me and then not let him go?
So maybe it is more of a mocking tone here. He's not really contrite. He's just, okay, you think you're powerful. Go ahead, go do your prayer for me. Go ahead and have your festival here in the land, and I'll let you do that. Cross my fingers behind my back. I think both are possible, but I'm starting to think with Moses' character is probably a little more the mocking side.
Because obviously this is only the 4th plague, we have 6.
We still have 6 to go.
He's not getting it.
He's not learned the lesson yet.
So I don't understand why God would, before Moses and the Israelites got out of Egypt to go do their worship thing, why did he not leave the flies to swarm until they were out?
Because Moses asked for them to go away. And so God is showing. So maybe Moses isn't necessarily the smartest guy either. Moses is being genuine. He's like, okay, you want me to pray for you, then I'm going to pray for you. So he prays for him right then, and this flies leave, and then Pharaoh's like, just kidding. Sorry, you can't go. So Moses isn't necessarily the greatest statistician. How do you say that word at this point? Maybe that's why Moses asked him for a specific time. Yeah. Oh, I missed some things.
You already read.
Okay, I already did it. What do you have, Bub?
It says, he's going to take the plague off of your people. It doesn't say anything about Moses' people.
Well, this is one of the first plagues that distinguished. Goshen wasn't affected by the flies. So in this case, Moses is saying, yeah, we'll remove it from your people. So Goshen didn't get affected by the flies. They might have been affected by the blood of the gnats and the frogs, but and to a certain degree, maybe that was to make sure the people understood God is God. He is powerful, period, everywhere. Because they've kind of depended on the Egyptian way of life for the last 400 years too. Any other thoughts before we go on to 5?
Something along that line. Early on, God warned that the people, all the people, including Jews, would be affected by plagues. But I was thinking, the other thing is, there's one thing about hearing, oh yeah, this is happening over there. But if it's happening to you, you know, the gods that were worshipped around you, now all of a sudden can't have their power. All of a sudden, that's not just something you're hearing about someplace else, it's happening to you. And it changes your perspective. And then all of a sudden, you knew it could happen, and now it's happening over there and not happening here. Maybe it adds more to the belief.
And the other side of that is, remember, after the first encounter where Moses tells Pharaoh to let the people go, and then Pharaoh makes their life harder with the bricks, they start complaining. So God does the first couple of plagues everywhere just to prove, hey, this is real, and now he's starting to distinguish my people from your people. Plague 5. Then the Lord said to Moses, go into Pharaoh and say to him, thus says the Lord, the God of the Hebrews, let my people go, that they may serve me. For if you refuse to let them go and still hold them, behold, the hand of the Lord will fall on a very severe plague upon your livestock that are in the field, the horses, the donkeys, the camels, the herds, and the flocks. But the Lord will make a distinction between the livestock of Israel and the livestock of Egypt, so that nothing of all that belongs to the people of Israel shall die. And the Lord set a time, saying, tomorrow the Lord will do this thing in the land. And the next day the Lord did this thing. All the livestock of the Egyptians died, but not one of the livestock of the people of Israel died. And Pharaoh sent, and behold, not one of the livestock of Israel was dead. But the heart of Pharaoh was hardened, and he did not let the people go. I'm going to get in trouble for what I'm going to say if the right people listen to this in the future. There's a phrase that gets said amongst Indiana United Methodists that says, be encouraged. And it's become almost a slap in the face, because anytime that a certain bishop says be encouraged, it's usually followed before that with a whole letter of how me as a traditionalist, I'm in the wrong, and I've done something bad, and I'm not a good person. And so then the bishop always says, be encouraged. And every time I hear be encouraged, now it just makes me twinge. And I say that to say, I wonder if there isn't a point where Pharaoh hears, let my people go, that he doesn't start to twinge a little bit. Do you get what I'm saying?
Coming next.
What? Let my people go. I'm going to entertain the notion of not, so what am I going to have to pay for if I don't?
So my Bible talks about the flies probably carrying, it says anthrax bacteria that would infect animals, and then it goes on to talk about a bull god, a cow god, and a ram god. Since you started bringing those up, do you have that in your?
So, plague 5 is of the livestock Hathor, the goddess of love, vitality, Apis, the god of strength and vitality. Both were represented by cow. And I'm not making this up. I don't understand Egyptian mythology at times, but these gods were known to take the form of cattle and go amongst the herd and have sex with the cattle and help promote fertility and multiplying the cattle. And instead of them bringing vitality and love and strength, well, you know, all of them died.
You sure are awfully obsessed with sex.
Yeah, they're pretty obsessed with sex and weird things. One of them, this god and this goddess are sometimes shown with a cow's head, sometimes a ram's head, sometimes a horse head. I don't understand. I'm just reporting to you what Daniel told me as he's done the research.
I'm surprised you didn't point to a box.
This is in the box, but this is very specific to the story, so I can't leave it in the box. I mean, because it seems, you know, 10 is not normally a number God uses. 7 and 12 are the numbers that God uses for completeness and wholeness. But 10 was a number that the Egyptians used. 10 and 60 were their numbers. And so the fact that there are 10 plagues and they seem to directly parallel to some of the key sets of gods within Egyptian mythology, that can't be a coincidence to me. So that's why I want to bring this to you, because I've wondered this for years, from the first time I heard the story. Why is it so specific on these plagues? And why in this order? Because that just, again, there's the notion, if your Bible mentions diseases on the flies, okay, that would be a perfect explanation for why the livestock would die. And God could have worked within natural causes to make this happen, but God could just as easily just do this.
That order seems relevant.
The order seems relevant because, again, I would think the gnats, then the flies, then the frogs, then the death of the
It
livestock.
goes smaller to bigger.
Yeah,
But, I mean, if you look at the order of breakdown of a cattle, I mean, it would go flies and gnats, and then you have the blood seeping out, and I mean, there's a totally different order for it.
If this was moderately explained by natural phenomenon, it would be in a completely different order. So I get where some Bibles and some notes are trying to find a reason for this. I mean, I've watched a lot of this period has always fascinated me. From a young age, I like Greek and Roman mythology. I like Egyptian mythology. I don't know why. I just always was fascinated by that. And this story in no way, shape, or form makes sense if you're trying to explain it rationally. I've seen people try to do it and even be moderately successful, but they have to twist it and it has to be turned on its head for this to happen naturally. And so therefore, I tend to want to say, this proves that our God is real and our God is powerful, and he's intentionally dismantling the Egyptian way of life. It's not enough for him to take his people out of Egypt. He's making sure that Egypt understands they are wrong. Of course, the sad reality is like you guys pointed out, and within a couple of years, they go back to being Egyptians, just to the way it was before. And even though there is literally a sage who wrote down, bad things happen, we need to fix this. And we'll just go back to the way things were before, right? That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. That was just a one-time occurrence. It'll never happen again. I mean, it doesn't, but I can just imagine God up there. Okay, fine, don't learn the lesson. Go do what you're going to do anyway. I'm over here if you want me. I mean, after you've made all your people completely disgusted, and now you've lost all your livestock, at some point you'd think Pharaoh would get the picture. Do another one before we end? Why not? Plague 6. Sure, extra innings, right? Then the Lord said to Moses and Aaron, take handfuls of soot from the kiln and let Moses throw them into the air in the sight of Pharaoh. It shall become fine dust over all the land of Egypt and become boils breaking out in sores on man and beast throughout all the land of Egypt. So they took soot from the kiln and stood before Pharaoh, and Moses threw it in the air, and it became boils breaking out in sores on man and beast. The magicians could not stand before Moses because of the boils, for the boils came upon the magicians and upon all the Egyptians. But the Lord hardened the heart of Pharaoh, and he did not listen to them, as the Lord had spoken to Moses.
But not all the animals were dead.
This is the beasts, the livestock, the domesticated animals were dead. Now we get the rest of them. Yes, Grant?
Okay, so I've been wondering this. In my Bible, it says, Pharaoh's heart had, the Lord hardened Pharaoh's heart as the Lord had predicted to Moses.
So, right from the beginning, God says, Pharaoh's heart's going to be hardened. He's not going to listen to you. And I'm going to bring my miracles to prove who I am. until such a time that Pharaoh will send you away and you will never see him again. From the beginning, God told Moses, this is not going to go well for the Egyptians. You just need to know this. I'm going to tell you to do this. You're going to do it. They're not going to like it. They're going to try pretend that they're going to relent, and then they don't. From the beginning, he says he will cripple the Egyptians. I don't remember if he uses that word or not. So 6, you get 2 more prominently known gods. You get Isis, and not the militant group, because Isis was the goddess of health, and they kind of like to not bring health. And then you get Thoth, the god of medicine. This is where we get the symbol for the snake on the pole for medicine. And they're supposed to be able to make people better. And everybody, absolutely everybody in Egypt gets a boil. But not just one here, you can have 100.
Must have been immediately if the Christians couldn't even stand there.
Yeah, this isn't something that developed overnight. It was pretty instantaneous. I've never really seen a boil. I know enough to know I really don't want to.
You do not watch Dr. Pimple Popper.
I do not watch Dr. Pimple Popper at all. That just sounds disgusting to me.
I think I'm gonna go home and watch some of that.
The name makes me want to crave it.
It's gross. You can't turn away.
Yeah, I can. Work with nurses, I turn away all the time.
So up to this point,
Amy has a comment.
Amy's got a comment. And he ran the magicians out of strength in only 2 plagues. They hurt. We have sores. We cannot do anything. Sorry, we're not going to try this one. Pharaoh, you're on your own. They're not like the Black Knight in the Search for the Holy Grail, where it's only a flesh wound. They're the exact opposite. Sorry, no, we can't even appear before you because we've got too many sores.
Also, wasn't there they weren't supposed to come before the king if they weren't?
If they weren't summoned. And yet Moses keeps appearing before Pharaoh. And again, to Bubba's point, Pharaoh, have the guy bumped off. I mean, come on, at some point, you got the authority, just do it. And I'm sure his advisors say, why do you let this guy keep coming around? Yes, Leah.
Well, Pharaoh just keeps still asking him to pray for him and just ends it. It's not like he's preventing it from happening. He's just letting it happen and then fixing it.
So maybe Pharaoh is secretly very superstitious and thinks that somehow he can finagle his way around and make everything okay for him. So far, God has attacked the Nile, their lifeblood, the notion of love, their notion of fertility, their notion of earth and life, their notion of what is supposed to produce life, their notion of creation, again, love and vitality and strength in animals, and now health and medicine. We're just completely dismantling their system of beliefs here. Systematically. Yes?
I think it's interesting that God is the one in control. He hardens his heart and things are going not good, but it's all in God's timing.
It's all in God's timing. God has differentiated since plague 3. None of the Israelites the Hebrews are being affected by this. God is making it very, very blatantly clear. You can depend on me and go and worship me and things will be okay. Or you can depend on this system that you've given your life to up to this point. And where is that getting you at this point?
Well, the Pharaoh had to get a little pushback from the people who lived there, the Egyptians, wasn't he?
Just a little bit, maybe?
You would think.
I mean, at some point in time, even the most devout Egyptians would be saying, Uncle, tap out.
At some point, you think he would be not only afraid of, which is he gonna be more afraid of? Another plague or his people revolting against it and overthrowing him?
That's a good point.
As it sunk in, yeah.
Very much a thick-headed, yeah. Yeah, Leah.
Do you think Pharaoh's twisting it? Because it's not like the people know that Moses and Aaron are doing that. Instead, Pharaoh's just like, all these bad things are happening, but look, I fixed it.
Oh, yeah, it could be that he's hiding the fact that Moses and Aaron are the ones doing it. Instead, yes, the gods are sending us these bad omens, but look at me, that's a good point. I fixed it. It's kind of like your
Gods are
point.
angry, but look, I've repaired our relationship.
We don't ever try and twist bad things to use them to our advantage for political gain, do we? That's never happened ever in the last 3 years or anything by both sides of the political spectrum. No, that never happens.
Sure you're not saying 30?
I'm just talking about purely a plague, a pandemic of sorts. That was not used politically for gain by either side. So I kind of think maybe Leah's answering your thing. Pharaoh's probably trying to find a way to spin all this to his advantage. But again, I still think Bub's point. If I was Pharaoh, I would have offed Moses after plague 1. But maybe that's only recent history where we off our enemies,
And that would have been enough that Aaron would have said, I'm done, see you, bye.
You have to be somewhat afraid of him by now.
At some point, yeah, there's a level of fear, bare minimum respect of the power that God seems to be giving Moses to wield. Any other? And I really hate to do this. I was hoping that we could get through all of them, but we're gonna press pause at plague 6, and in 3 weeks, we'll come back for plague 7. Stay tuned until next time, and we see how dumb Pharaoh can get. Any final thoughts before I pray? Let's pray. Oh, Lord, these stories tonight remind us just how dumb sometimes we can be. Lord, I pray that we would not be that hard-hearted, but Lord, that you would continue to soften our heart, as you say through the prophets. Lord, give us a heart of flesh where we would not turn a blind eye to those who are suffering around us, where we would truly be open and worship you the way you call us to. And Lord, somehow may we proclaim your truth to the world around us so that the world might pursue you and not be pushed away from you. We pray this in Jesus' name. Amen. Thank you all. Again, we'll